What's up YouTube? I'm David Warren and welcome back to this week's video. If you're new here, consider subscribing. My channel is all about being a CRNA student, being a nurse practitioner, and really all things life that involve those two things. So thank you for watching. In today's video, I want to talk to you about what I wish I had known before going to anesthesia school. That's huge. What I wish I had known before going to anesthesia school. I really thought after my NP career and going into something different, I really thought, like how hard can it actually be? Like, what's it actually going to be like? And I didn't really have a full appreciation for it until I'm like in the thick of it now. And there's so much I want to share with you, so much I want to talk about. This may be like a multi-part series, but I really want to start off today with just giving you some big basic points on really what I wish I had known about anesthesia school before I ever started, and not really anything that I could have known until I got into the thick of it. And I'm like, okay, wow, now I get it. First point is develop study habits. I've got these like listed on my phone, so I'm gonna look down every now and then. Develop good study habits is my like number one point. Because especially for me, like I didn't have to study a whole lot in nursing school. Like I was able to I studied some, don't get me wrong, but I didn't have to study like I do now. And so I thought I knew how to study. And in nurse practitioner school, like I had to study a little harder than I did in undergrad, but not like super hard, not anything like I do now. And so I thought I knew how to study. And then when I came into anesthesia school, like learning how to study, people had said that. People were like, you got to learn how to study. And that was very low on my totem pole because I was like, I just don't know that that's going to be a thing for me. Like I know how to study. I've been through undergrad. I've been through graduate programs. Like I don't think that's going to be an issue. But boy, was I wrong because I did not know how to study. I knew how to study small amounts of material over a long period of time. Like in nursing school, I would make flashcards and I would take like, these index cards and write stuff on them, like write, words on them and then, whatever the concept or whatever it was on the back. And I did that in graduate school some as well in my NP career, or my NP schooling, not career. But now, fast forward to CRNA school, when I first started, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do what I've always done, make flashcards. And let me tell you, that's not feasible. Whenever you have like 200 PowerPoint slides and you're in 3 classes and they each have like multiple PowerPoint slides, like it's just not feasible. You cannot make 200 something flashcards like a day for 3 classes and then learn that within the week before the next week material hits. You just don't have the time. And so I thought was, okay, well, I'm gonna go to like an online flashcard. So I looked at Anki, and even the online flashcards take time because the big factor with doing these is it's so time consuming to like hand write out the back, hand write out the front, and then do that multiple times over for a 200 page PowerPoint slide presentation. 200 slide PowerPoint presentation. I'll get it right in a minute. It's just not feasible. There's literally not enough time in the day to do that. And so that's one thing that I found out very quickly is I don't have the time to study how I've always studied. I've got to do something differently. And that didn't really hit me until about halfway through the first quarter that I'm like, okay, I'm like spending all of my time preparing to study, and by the end of the week, I don't have any time to actually study and learn the material. So I was like, okay, I've got to do something differently. So I started making questions from the lecture material. I would read through the lecture material and then I would make questions for myself based on the lecture material, because studies have shown that the way that you retain information the best is called active learning. And active learning is whenever you are questioning yourself or quizzing yourself. Active recall is also what it's called. And so doing active recall has really changed the way that I study altogether. And even now, like in this last quarter, doing active recall is also time consuming. It's not as time consuming as writing it out on paper, because I write it out on a Word document or I use an app or something of that nature to write it, to type it out, or to copy and paste from the lecture slides into my notes. And that's one way that I study, is active recall. And so that's just vitally important. Like you have to know how you study. So I would advise you to spend some time thinking about and learning, how do you study? What does that look like for you? Because it's different for everybody. And so I would also encourage you to go read the book called Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning. Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. I read that after my first quarter in anesthesia school because I knew something had to change. And that's where I got these active recall ideas, questioning myself, making questions, things of that nature. And so I would highly, highly, highly advise you, if you're going into NP school or if you're going into CRNA school, read that book, Make It Stick, because it will change the way you study for the better. Because it's always scary to try to change something like that. It's like, okay, I've done this like my entire academic career and now I'm going to change it up. But whenever you realize like I literally don't have the time to do it, you will make time to like find ways that you can actually study. So I would advise you to do that. Read Make It Stick. It'll change your life as far as studying. Number 2, what I wish I had known is really the amount of studying that had to be done. Because like I said, in my undergrad career, I didn't really have to study that much. In my NP schooling, I studied more, but not nearly as much as I am now. I really underestimated what it is that I would have to study and how long it would take. I'm studying on average 8 to 10 hours per day with maybe a day or two off throughout the week. So I'm averaging, probably 40 to 60 hours of studying per week, average, some less, some more. And that looks different. So initially when I first started, I was like, okay, I've got to study every single day. I didn't take days off and I was going to really burn myself out. So I make it a priority to, if I don't take a full day off, I take multiple like breaks throughout the week. Like I'll take a few hours here, a few hours there for my like own sanity. And so taking that time for myself is so important, but also realizing like how long I'm going to have to study. And I vividly remember being on orientation for CRNA school and they're like, oh, you're going to be studying like 40 to 60 hours a week. And I'm like, okay, sure. And when I got in, I'm like, okay, that checks out. Like, yeah, I'm actually doing that. And I thought like at the time, like, what is it that I'm actually going to be learning? Like, I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact, like, what is it that I'm actually going to be learning that's going to take that much time? And I didn't really think about it and I didn't really know. But now, like, yeah, I can definitely tell, like, you're going to spend a lot of time studying because you're going down to the cellular level. I'll give you some examples. Like for medications, we'll just take like epinephrine, for example. And so in like nurse thinking and maybe nurse practitioner thinking, you're like, okay, I'm gonna give epinephrine. It can be given IV, it can be given IM, it can be given down in the tracheal tube. Like it's an alpha and a beta agonist. It's gonna cause positive inotropy, positive chronotropy. You give it for anaphylaxis. It's a vasopressor. It's a naturally occurring substance in the human body. So you know all these like random facts, right? But then in anesthesia school, you're really going down to the cellular level. Like when you talk about, okay, it's an alpha receptor, or it's an alpha agonist, it's a beta agonist. What does it actually mean? Like what is a beta 1 receptor? We know where they are, of course the heart, but like what actually is that? And so you learn that it is a G protein second messenger receptor. It spans the membrane 7 times. Once the ligand, which is epinephrine, binds, it activates a G protein, which sends a second messenger through the cell. It increases levels of intracellular calcium and cyclic AMP. You learn all of these like random, or not, I guess random, but like super in-depth cellular facts that you just didn't know before. And it's like, I didn't really think about that. Like as a nurse or as an NP, it's like, what actually is a receptor? Like what does that do? And then once it binds, like what is it, how does it actually work? And then you think about the cardiac physiology of that, and you think about the pacemaker potential and how the pacemaker cells depolarize at spontaneous preset intervals. And when you increase intracellular calcium, it's going to steepen the pacemaker potential curve, and so it's going to depolarize more frequently. And so you just learn all of these like super in-depth facts. And I didn't really know that like going in. And so now I can see, yeah, there's a whole lot I didn't know. And you take that with like every organ system, autonomic nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, the physiology at the neuromuscular junction, like all of those things, it's going to take a lot of time because there's going to be so much you have to know. So I really underestimated how much I would be studying. And so if you're going into CRNA school, just know you're going to spend hours. up on hours a week studying. So don't let that catch you by surprise. My third point is you've got to be able to take some time for yourself. I kind of hit on that in the last point, but third point, take some time for yourself. Whether it be a few hours a week, whether it be a day off or 2 days off a week, or you take a weekend off a month, whatever that is, take some time for yourself and focus on your mental and your physical well-being. Focus on your mental well-being. I see a therapist, super helpful. Maybe for you, you just go out with some friends, you talk to some friends, you don't have to see a therapist, that's fine. But focus on your physical well-being too. Don't let that slide. It's so easy to sit and study and then be like, okay, I'm gonna go eat and go to bed. But no, really, I get out every single day. Like I go for a 2-mile walk, or I go for a run, or I go to the gym. I do something to get my body physically active. And I would advise you to do that as well. Stay on top of your like physical well-being and your mental well-being, because you can do it for the short term and get away with it. But like over the course of 3 years or over the course of a year, like it's going to be rough. You really have to think about like taking care of yourself. And that looks different for everybody. For me, like I said, that's talking to a therapist, that's having a good support system, and going to keep myself physically active, going for runs, going to the gym, things of that nature. I would advise you to do the same. All right, my last point is it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that kind of goes without saying. It's so easy to get focused and to be like, okay, this is going to be over. I've got to get through this. Like I'm going to do this, this, and this. And before you know it, you're like burning yourself out if you like sprint through it. And I started out that way. I was like, okay, I'm going to study every single day, not going to take a day off. And, a few months of that, and you're like, I'm done. Like I'm crispy, put me out. And so you really have to think about and remember that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like it's a 3-year marathon. You're not sprinting for a few months. You're not sprinting for a year. Like pace yourself. There's plenty of time to learn the material you need to learn. You just have to pace yourself. Study hard for a few days, take some time off, focus on yourself, and then get back to it. It's a marathon. You cannot sprint your way through CRNA school, just like you can't sprint your way through a marathon. Maybe some people can. Those people that run like 5-minute miles and do the marathons in like an hour, like that's just nuts. Those people are crazy. I could never. But for the rest of us, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like you really have to pace yourself, take time off, focus on your physical and your mental well-being. Also, you realize you have to get the stuff done. Like you have to get the studying done, but realize that it's a marathon and you're not going to complete the marathon. Like it's not going to be over in 1 year. Like you really have to pull the reins back, pace yourself, take time off, take some days off. But then on your study days, really crack down to it. Like you also have to realize that I've got stuff to get done and I have to get it done. And this can't wait right now. Like I have to study this. Like there's gonna be times that you have exams and you're like, okay, I can't take today off. I've got to study through today. But this weekend or on Sunday, like I'm gonna take that day off. So those are the tips that I have for you today. Really, the last one is super important and not something that I realized until I got into the program a few months. And I'm like, okay, we've got to pull back here a little bit, continue studying the way you are, but you're going to have to take some time off. And so those are the points that I have for you here. If you have any additional points that you would like to add, comment below. Let me know what they are. I would love to hear them. I'm almost a year through anesthesia school, and it's been quite a ride so far. I know this is like not even halfway through at this point, but I'm excited for the journey. I'm excited for where it's going. If you have tips, comment below. I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.